Have you ever caught yourself saying, "Oh no, I should not be angry. I should let go. I should be grateful." And yet, a few minutes later, you are still angry, still clinging, still complaining. Have you ever wondered why you have read so many books, listened to countless talks, collected countless inspiring quotes, and still, when life hits you hard, you fall into the same confusion and pain as before? Welcome back to the channel, my friend. I am truly glad you are here, because today we are going to talk about a question that quietly haunts many intelligent, sensitive, and spiritually curious people, a question that sits in the gap between understanding and living, between knowing and being. The question is this: why can you understand so many principles, so many life lessons, so many spiritual teachings, and yet still fail to live a peaceful, joyful, free life? Why can you explain wisdom but not embody it? Why does your mouth speak profound insights while your heart still feels trapped in the same old worries, fears, and patterns? Many teachings from great masters, including the modern meditation teacher Mingyur Rinpoche, there is a clear answer. It is because you have never really met yourself. You ever truly known your own mind beyond concepts and stories. You know ideas, but you do not know the living reality of your own inner world. You know what the books say about emotions, desires, fear, karma, compassion, and awareness, but you do not stay long enough with your own experience to see how these things actually move inside you moment by moment. It is like memorizing a map of a city, but never walking through its streets. In this long sharing, we will slowly and gently explore why this happens and how to cross the gap between understanding and transformation. You will do it in a storytelling way, so that you can listen like you are listening to a friend, not sitting an exam. On this journey, we will touch on self-knowledge, awareness, karma, habitual tendencies, compassion, and the everyday practice of awakening. You will talk about how you can move from "time of this already" to "I am living this now," from collecting ideas to cultivating wisdom. We begin. Imagine a person who could easily be you or someone you know very well. Let us call her N. N is smart, thoughtful, and loves to learn. Her shelves are full of books about psychology, self-help, spirituality, philosophy, and ancient wisdom. He can quote famous teachers. He follows meditation channels. He knows many beautiful sayings about letting go, forgiveness, impermanence, gratitude, and inner peace. When her friends are in trouble, he always has the right words. He can explain why clinging causes suffering, why expectations lead to disappointment, why we need to live in the present moment instead of being trapped in the past or future. People around her often say, "You are so wise, you understand so much," yet when the lights are off and nobody is watching, Elle often feels like a completely different person. When her partner forgets something important, a wave of anger rises in her chest, and in that moment, all the teachings about patience vanish. When he sees someone on social media who seems more successful than he is, jealousy burns inside her, even though he knows perfectly well that comparing herself to others is pointless. When her parents criticize her, he falls back into the role of a hurt child, feeling misunderstood, defensive, and small. He knows he should be calm, compassionate, and detached, but in reality, he feels anxious, insecure, and stuck. Sometimes he looks at herself and thinks, "What is wrong with me? Why can I tell others how to live, but cannot live that way myself? Why do I understand so much, but change so little?" One day, after a particularly painful argument with her partner, Anna sits alone in the kitchen, staring at the cold cup of tea he forgot to drink. He remembers how during the fight he said words he did not mean, slammed the door, cried, and then blamed herself again. He hears an inner voice saying, "You have read so much about communication. You know how important empathy is. You know that anger is often a mask for fear. You know all this, and still you repeated the same drama again. What is the point of knowing so much if you live like this?" At that moment, another thought appears. Maybe the problem is not that I do not know enough. Maybe the problem is that I do not really know myself. He realizes that most of her knowledge lives in her head as concepts. He can talk about them, explain them, even analyze them. But when emotions explode, he is like a stranger to herself. He does not understand why some words trigger her so deeply, why certain situations make her panic, why some small event can ruin her mood for the whole day. He has never really sat down with her own mind and said, "Who are you? How do you work? What are you afraid of? What are you clinging to?" He has looked outward, but rarely inwards. This is the turning point that many teachings point to. Real wisdom begins not when you collect more theories, but when you turn the light of awareness toward your own heart. When you dare to meet your fear, anger, desire, and confusion as they are, without immediately judging or escaping. Isiora Konchi often uses simple, warm language to explain that meditation and spiritual practice are not about pushing away thoughts and emotions, but about becoming gently familiar with them, like getting to know an old friend you have ignored for years. You cannot become free of something that you refuse to see clearly. You cannot transform a pattern that you never fully acknowledge. You cannot heal a wound that you always cover and decorate with clever ideas. So why do people like Anna, and maybe you as well, choose the path of understanding without knowing? One reason is that concepts feel safe. Reading about emotions is less scary than feeling them. Analyzing fear is less painful than entering the body and sensing where fear actually lives, how it tightens your chest, shortens your breath, makes your stomach cold. Talking about letting go is easier than letting go of a real attachment, of a relationship, a dream, or an image of who you think you should be. The mind loves safety. Tries to protect you by staying one step away from the rawness of experience, builds a library of theories, hoping that if it understands enough, it will not have to feel so much. But the heart has its own language, and it does not change through description alone. Another reason is habit. From childhood, we are trained to value thinking over feeling, knowledge over awareness, analysis over presence. In school, you are praised for giving the right answer, not for honestly saying, "I do not know my own heart." You are rewarded for solving external problems, not for looking into the patterns of your own mind. Over time, you may start to believe that if you can talk about something, you have mastered it. If you can explain love, you think you know love. If you can explain fear, you think you have gone beyond fear. But explanation and transformation are not the same. Think of a person who knows everything about healthy food, can list vitamins and nutrients, follows channels about fitness, and shares articles about longevity. If you look only at their words, you would think they are the embodiment of health. But if that person still overeats when stressed, ever exercises and ignores their body's signals, then their knowledge stays at the surface. Their life is still driven by unconscious habits, by the urge to escape uncomfortable emotions through food. In the same way, you may know that anger harms you, that clinging creates suffering, that greed and jealousy poison your happiness. You may even be able to give lectures on these topics, but when a situation triggers your insecurity, your body reacts faster than your intellect, your heart starts racing, muscles tense up, your old survival strategies take over. In that moment, the wise voice becomes very small, like a distant radio. You are not weak or bad when this happens. You are simply human, driven by patterns formed over many years, maybe many lifetimes. The question is not, why am I such a failure? The more useful question is, how can I bring awareness into these moments so that my understanding enters my body and actions, not just my thoughts? Let us return to Anna. After realizing that her knowledge has become a kind of armor, he decides to try something he has always avoided. Instead of reading more, he will sit quietly with herself, even if it feels strange. First, he thinks meditation means stop thinking and be peaceful, so when her mind jumps around, he becomes frustrated. He complains to a friend who has been practicing meditation longer, and her friend smiles and says, "You are not here to fight your thoughts, you are here to get to know them. Think of them as children who have been ignored for too long. Of course they are noisy. You do not need to silence them. You just need to stay with them without being pulled into every story." Her friend suggests a simple practice every day. Sit for 10 minutes, close your eyes or soften your gaze, and just notice your breath when thoughts come. Instead of pushing them away or chasing them, label them gently: thinking, worrying, planning, remembers, and then come back to the breath. This is not about achieving some special state. It is about building a new relationship with your own mind, one of curiosity and kindness. First, Anna feels restless. Her body wants to move. Her mind wants to check the phone. Her thoughts shout, "This is useless. Do something productive." But she remembers what she read in many teachings: the path from confusion to clarity is not built in one dramatic moment, but in countless small moments of returning. So he continues. Day by day, he starts to notice patterns. For example, whenever he sits down, one particular worry appears: what if I fail? What if people judge me? What if I am not enough? He realizes that these questions appear not only in meditation, but also in daily life, almost like a background noise he had stopped hearing. Now, with awareness, he can see how these thoughts push her to overwork, to please others, to avoid honest conversations. He sees how they feed her anxiety and self-criticism. This recognition is already a step toward freedom, because you cannot work with an invisible force. Another pattern he notices is her relationship with anger. Before, he believed he was an angry person or a bad person whenever he lost her temper. Out sitting quietly, he can feel anger as a wave of heat in the body, a tightening in the throat, a rush of energy in the chest. He sees that it often comes after a moment of feeling unseen, entered, or disrespected. Beneath the fire, there is a softer feeling of hurt or fear. This does not excuse harmful behavior, but it gives her a way to understand herself, to respond more wisely. Instead of just telling herself, "You should not be angry," he can ask, "What is the vulnerable feeling beneath this anger? Can I be with that feeling without immediately attacking myself or others?" This is self-knowledge, not as a theory, but as a direct encounter with your own inner landscape. Slowly, Anna begins to notice moments in daily life when awareness appears without her forcing it. For example, during a conversation, he feels the urge to interrupt and defend herself. In the past, he would automatically speak. Now, he notices the urge, almost as if watching it from the outside. Tiny space opens between the impulse and the action. In that small space lies the possibility of change. He can still react as usual, or he can breathe and choose a different response. He does not always succeed, but even noticing the pattern is progress. In teachings on karma and cause and effect, it is often said that our destiny is shaped by countless actions of body, speech, and mind. Each moment of awareness is like a small turn of the steering wheel, shifting the direction of your inner journey. You may think these small shifts are insignificant, but over months and years, they add up to a different life. Another important aspect of knowing yourself is seeing how you talk to yourself inside. Many people who understand a lot also have a very strict inner judge. They know all the ideals about kindness, humility, and compassion, and they use these ideals as weapons against themselves. Anytime they feel angry, jealous, or lazy, the inner judge screams, "You are a fake. You are not spiritual. You are a disappointment." The more they learn, the more reasons this judge finds to punish them. This is not wisdom, it is just another form of ego, another habit of harassment. True self-knowledge includes seeing this inner judge clearly and questioning its authority. If your spiritual path makes you hate yourself more, something is wrong. Real practice should deepen your compassion, not only for others, but also for the confused, wounded parts of yourself. When you understand that your anger comes from old hurt, your jealousy from old fear of being less, your laziness from old exhaustion, you may find it easier to respond with patience instead of violence. This does not mean you indulge every habit, but you stop adding extra suffering on top of what is already there. Inyo Rinpoche often uses humor to point out that we are very serious about our problems, but not very interested in the nature of the mind that experiences those problems. We treat thoughts and emotions as if they were heavy objects we must carry forever, while forgetting that they rise and disappear in the open space of awareness. If you never turn attention toward that space, you will always be disarranging the furniture of your thoughts. You will rearrange your worries, decorate your anxieties with clever explanations, and organize your beliefs, but you will never discover the room itself. Real self-knowledge means discovering that you are not only the changing content of your mind, but also the aware presence that notices that content. When you realize, even for a moment, I am aware of this anger, therefore I am not only this anger, a door opens. Then a tiny gap between you and your emotion gives you room to breathe. From there, understanding becomes embodied wisdom. Let us imagine that one day, after months of practice, Al walks home from work, feeling tired. Colleagues comment hurt earlier, and the old story starts to play in your mind. They do not respect you. You are invisible. You are not good enough. In the past, he would believe this story without question, sink into self-pity, maybe lash out at someone close to her. But now, as the story begins, another part of her wakes up. He notices, this is that familiar narrative again, the one that always comes when I feel criticized. He takes a deep breath and feels the tightness in her chest. Instead of immediately feeding the story with more thoughts, he turns her attention to the simple sensation of hurt in her body. He stays with it for a few breaths, saying silently, "It is okay to feel this. Many people feel this every day. All beings who feel this same hurt be held in kindness." This small act of awareness and compassion changes the flavor of the evening. The story loses some of its power. The emotion rises and falls like a wave, instead of becoming a storm that lasts for days. This is not a miracle in the dramatic sense, but it is the beginning of real freedom. It is the difference between drowning and learning to float, between being dragged by the river of karma and learning to swim. Why does this matter for your destiny, your life, your sense of meaning? Because as long as you are ruled by unconscious patterns, one amount of external knowledge will protect you from repeating the same mistakes in new forms. You may change jobs, partners, cities, even spiritual traditions, but if you never meet your own mind, the same fear, the same insecurity, the same anger will follow you in different clothes. You may think, this teacher will save me, this method will fix me, this relationship will complete me. But unless you use these outer conditions as mirrors to know yourself, you will stay stuck. Knowing yourself is not a luxury or a hobby. It is the foundation for any lasting change. Without it, you will keep decorating the surface of your life, while the same old roots lie hidden. The teachings cause and effect, karma, are not meant to frighten you, but to remind you that every inner movement has consequences. Single moment of awareness can interrupt a chain of reactive patterns. Single act of kindness toward yourself can soften years of self-hatred. Single honest look into your own fear can prevent you from unconsciously passing that fear to others. Over time, these small inner shifts reshape your relationships, your choices, and your future. It is also important to see that real self-knowledge is not selfish. Some people worry that focusing on their own mind is self-centered, but the opposite is true. The more clearly you see your own confusion, the more understanding you naturally have for others. When you see how hard it is for you to change a single habit, you become less harsh toward people who struggle with theirs. When you recognize your own need for love and acceptance, you are less likely to judge others for seeking the same. When you see how your actions, even small ones, can hurt or heal others, you feel a deeper sense of responsibility. From this perspective, inner work is an act of compassion. It is like cleaning a window so that more light can pass through. The light does not belong to you alone, it touches everyone around you. Think of someone in your life who has a calm presence. Maybe they are not famous, not highly educated, not full of theories, but when you are with them, you feel safe and at ease. They listen without rushing to fix you. They admit their own mistakes. They do not act like they are above you. Their wisdom is not in their words alone, but in their way of being. This is often the result of deep self-knowledge, of facing their own shadows, of learning to sit with discomfort without running away. You may not know their inner story, but you can feel the fruit of their inner work. The teachings of many spiritual traditions emphasize that wisdom is not about collecting information, but about transforming the heart. In some stories, a student who can recite many scriptures still lives in confusion, while a simple person who fully applies one teaching lives with peace. You do not need to know everything. You need to deeply digest what you already know. Single insight, like everything is impermanent, if really understood, can change how you respond to loss, success, aging, and death. Single insight, like others suffer just like me, if really understood, can open the door to genuine compassion. The challenge is that we often stay at the level of already know that and move on, instead of staying with the insight until it sinks into our bones. So, how can you begin to move from understanding to living, from concept to embodiment, from knowing about yourself to truly knowing yourself? You can start exactly where you are, with simple practices woven into your daily life. For example, choose one recurring emotion that troubles you, such as anger, anxiety, jealousy, or shame. For a week or a month, make it your teacher. Do not try to get rid of it. Instead, observe it as carefully as you can. What triggers it? How does it feel in your body? What thoughts accompany it? What hidden beliefs are behind those thoughts? For instance, behind jealousy, there may be a belief that your value depends on being better than others. Behind anxiety, there may be a belief that you must control everything to be safe. Do not judge yourself for having these beliefs. must see them clearly. Each time the emotion appears, take a breath and remind yourself, "Oh, this is a pattern. The whole of me can feel this and still stay aware." This simple recognition is already a step beyond blind reaction. Another practice is to bring awareness into small, ordinary actions. When you drink a glass of water, really feel the coolness in your mouth. Notice your hand lifting the glass. Notice the sensation of swallowing. When you walk, feel the contact of your feet with the ground. When you wash dishes, feel the warmth of the water, the texture of the plates. This may sound trivial, but it trains your mind to stay present. The more present you are in neutral moments, the easier it becomes to stay present in challenging ones. Instead of living only in your head, you return again and again to the direct experience of this moment. For time, you begin to notice that your thoughts are like clouds moving across the sky of awareness. They come and go, but the sky remains. Then painful thoughts lose some of their power when you see them as passing events, not absolute truths. Third practice is to question your stories. Whenever you catch yourself thinking in rigid, absolute terms, such as "I always fail," "Nobody understands me," "I am not lovable," pause and ask, "Is this completely true? Is there any evidence that this might be an old story, not an objective fact?" You might recall times when you succeeded, when someone did understand you, when you received love. By questioning the stories, you loosen the chains they create. You are not trying to force positive thing, and you are simply balancing the mind by bringing in a broader view. This is also self-knowledge, seeing that many of your strongest beliefs are not solid walls, but repeated thoughts. Gradually, as you walk this path of awareness, your understanding starts to move from the head to the heart, from theory to practice. You may still read books and listen to teachings, but now you treat them as mirrors, not decorations. When you hear a teaching on patience, you immediately think of your own moments of impatience and ask, "How does this apply to me right now with the people I live with?" When you hear about compassion, you examine how you treat yourself when you make a mistake and how you treat those who upset you. When you hear that awareness is always present, like the sky behind the clouds, you look for that space in the middle of your next emotional storm. In this way, each teaching becomes a living question in your daily life, not just a nice phrase in your memory. For time, your destiny begins to feel less like a mystery and more like a natural unfolding of causes and conditions that you can influence through your choices. You may not be able to control everything that happens to you, but you can deeply influence how you respond, and that response shapes your future. The more you know your own mind, the less you are driven by invisible forces. You begin to see that the real prison was never the other situation, but the stories and reactions you believed without examination. When you change your relationship with your thoughts and emotions, you are no longer a slave to them. You become a participant, a co-creator of your life. As we come toward the end of this long reflection, I want to speak to you directly. If you are someone who has read many books, listened to many talks, and still feels stuck, please do not use that as another reason to attack yourself. The fact that you care, that you search, that you want to live with more wisdom and compassion already says something beautiful about your heart. The gap between understanding and living is not a sign of hypocrisy, it is a sign that you are human and that you have work to do. Everyone on a genuine path faces this gap. The question is not whether the gap exists, but whether you are willing to cross it step by step. Crossing it does not require you to become perfect. it requires you to become honest about your patterns, your fears, your attachments, your pain, honest about the fact that you might use knowledge as a shield, honest about the ways you avoid feeling. From that honesty, with the support of awareness, compassion, and wise teachings, you can start to live closer to what you know is true. If the message of this sharing could be distilled into one sentence, it might be this: you do not suffer because you know too late. You suffer because you do not truly know yourself. Begin there, not in theory, but in the living, breathing, messy reality of your own mind. Get to know your fear without immediately fixing it. Get to know your anger without immediately acting on it. Get to know your sadness without drowning in it. Get to know the quiet space of awareness that holds all of this. That is where your real power lies. Before we close, I want to invite you to reflect for a moment. Think of one principle you have understood for a long time. Maybe the idea that everything changes, or that gratitude brings joy, or that clinging brings suffering. Ask yourself honestly, in what areas of my life am I not living this yet? What is one small way I can embody this truth today? Not next month, not when I feel ready, but today. Maybe it is sending a kind message to someone you have been silently resenting. Maybe it is admitting a mistake. Maybe it is sitting quietly for 5 minutes and feeling your breath. Maybe it is simply noticing how often you say, "I already know," and replacing it with, "How can I live this more deeply?" If this sharing has touched you, if you felt recognized in the story of Anna or in the descriptions of knowing but not living, I encourage you to share your own experience in the comments. Have you ever felt that your understanding was far ahead of your actions? Have you had moments when you suddenly saw a pattern clearly and felt a shift? Your story might be the mirror that someone else needs right now. And if you want to continue exploring topics of awakening, wisdom, cause and effect, compassion, and the quiet art of truly knowing yourself, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with friends who might be walking a similar path. Your support helps this space stay alive as a small refuge for sincere seekers who are tired of just collecting ideas and are ready to live their truth. If you wish, you can also join as a member so that we can go even deeper together into practical methods of self-knowledge, mindfulness, and heart training in everyday life. Thank you for spending this time with me, for your patience, your openness, and your courage to look within. Until we meet again, may you gradually close the gap between what you know and how you live. May you come to know your own mind with tenderness and clarity, and may that self-knowledge become a source of freedom not only for you, but for everyone whose life touches yours. Life gets noisy. Work, stress, expectations. Sometimes we lose touch with the quiet part of ourselves. Bracelet isn't just an accessory. It's a small reminder that you deserve peace. You deserve moments of stillness. You deserve to hold on to your inner balance. If one of these bracelets speaks to your heart, you'll find the purchase link in the description below. And even more auctions available on our channel's shop page. Pick home the one that feels right.